एक मिनिट थांब. आणि ते आपण कधी एक
Hello. Vishali, let me know when we can start. Yeah.
yes, I will.
Hmm. Hi. Sorry for the technical problem. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yes. You are very audible, Vishali.
I am
Yes.
everyone. Yes,
Okay. Well, I'll make you the host now.
please do. Thank you.
Namaste, Balakrishnan.
Namaste, namaste, namaste everyone. Namaste Mona ji. Namaste
Yes. You
everyone.
can start, Bala.
Super. Give me a second. I'll just save my so much content today also. Let me know when you can see my screen. I'll just start presenting. One second. Okay. So today I was thinking we'll do a little bit more of Sangam and probably glance through what we did in the past as well. Because somehow I feel even for the Padams and briefly also talk about the composers. Probably we won't have enough time, but just to know the names at least and their famous compositions, one or two, or at least one, I think, is necessary in some sense. So that is what I was thinking. Yeah, is that all right? That's what I'm planning. Sharing. Okay. What does it say? Yeah. But I'm trying to share it. Give me a second. I just say something. I have to resolve an issue and then. Okay. So from the previous, I haven't switched on video. I just saw that. Okay. I was like, why can't I see myself? One second. Yeah, let me know when you can see me. Super. Great. Ha. Do we have everyone who we expected to have today, Vishali? Okay, great. Super.
Yeah, almost all of them.
Great. So one thing, any comments, anything continuing from the last time? Anyone has any things to share from the last time? Last time, probably I'll just quickly show you what we did also, that you can have an idea of what's at all. Computer is funnily acting up today. Please do this, dear computer. I don't know why I can't share. Okay. Wait. I am the host. I mean, it's some problem at my end. Give me a second. Okay. Yeah. No, I'll share this to do. Yeah. No, because if I went into the presentation mode and then it was not letting me share from there. So, okay. So this is what we did briefly last time. We discussed a little bit of Kottravai, who's Shakti. Probably give me a second. I'll just probably close the door. It's best. So we discussed Kottravai. Then we discussed Murugan, different forms of Murugan, the Yodhya coins. I mean, because you have Murugan inscriptions, Kartikeya inscriptions from 2nd century itself. Then we spoke primarily about Shilapadigaram and Manimekalai. Any questions? Anything about these? I don't know if you have anything. I'm happy to continue. Script. I'll probably quickly do a script thing. This is something we did also in the Telugu bit. Like you have your original Brahmi. old Brahmi. There's also a Tamil Brahmi that happens later, which is not included. But then basically the Grantha script, which is still actually, for example, as early as my great grandmother, my grandmother herself would still read a Grantha script because Tamil as a language does not have all the alphabets of Sanskrit. So if you had to read Sanskrit scriptures with the sa, ksha, tra, and all of that, you needed another script to read it. So there was the Grantham script. Tamil Grantham is what they call, and it's still prevalent. A lot of books actually do come in Grantha and this as well. So yeah, the Grantha, that segment is what they say is Brahmi. And if you have to, you can actually go through it. It's very fascinating to just look at, oh God, to look at it. There's actually a picture from, I think the Madurai Museum. I'd been to they have this big map, the government Madurai Museum. Uh, if you see, a lot of it is very close to what we saw, like the car, there it branches out. Like yaha, until here. If you remember in Telugu also, we did a little bit of that with the ka. For example, here it is where it kind of branches out. Here you see still Hindi ka somewhere there. The Devanagari, the Nagari script, which became Devanagari later. For example, the ka, because it looks like a T and all of that. Whereas the Hindi you can still see somewhere here. You know? I'm just giving you a, but if you want to quickly go through, spend a minute on this, yeah?
Yeah, I just want to I had a question. How
Yes.
and why does it change?
Sorry, how?
And why does it change?
Okay, why I wouldn't. The thing is, scripts change all the time because every 100 years, every 200 years, we have seen scripts change. Because one is because people also find easier ways to write it. Because as language, as scripts in the first time itself, we have. Uh, Pictorial. For example, they still say Indus Valley scripts are very pictorial. Like if you have to say bird or anything connected to the bird or words associated with it, pakshi, or if you have to say pa, you might still use the bird symbol because it's pa. Or so pa would be a symbol of the bird or something like that. I'm not stating a fact, but it's an example. Like this is how a few scripts have been in practice. For example, the most common thing that you would say, for example, you have A as an apple, B as in bat, right? Things like that. So some scripts originate itself like that. So if you have an apple kind of symbol, so it's A. And then if you have a symbol like a bat, it's B. And it goes on like that. So, and over the years, many, many years, people find ways to abstract the whole idea into something more codified form, which is agreed upon, which is easily accessible, easily writable. So when I talk about writing is easy, because as much as uh, all of this is my personal opinion from text. I mean, I could be wrong as well, but this is what I think about how scripts change, because the materials that you write with, the materials that you write on also change. So paper, leather, copper, stone, rock, all of these. For example, there is this theory of how South Indian languages become more curvy than the North Indian languages, because there's this whole joke about, oh, it all looks like jalebi, all South Indian. But why is it curvy? Is because of the writing. They call it as kol, Yertani, or they call it as Yertani. Ani literally means nail. Yert is to write, the writing nail, Yertani. So the way it was written, it was made. It was easier to write it in a curved way because of the materials that were used in comparison to what was available in the north. In the north, you could easily, with the material, I mean, we can go on a whole discussion also at a later point, at a later class, about what materials were used, because some things are more available at some places. So I mean, certain plants were more available, certain trees, because of which, certain barks, because of which a lot of things. Silk was more available at some places, so they could write on silk. With what would you write on silk? Raw material. Which raw material? From fruit or flower? which was the thing that was used, or stone, sandstone, whatever. So those kind of things. So because of the writing material, the South Indian scripts have become more curvy because it was more easier for them to write like that with that specific Yurtani, specific tool.
Yeah.
So that is one general change.
Even
The
even
other change, sorry.
I used to write lie in a different way when I was 10 years old. Now I'm almost 60. The lie has the lie la la lily lulu lie is different now. In the past 50 years, it has changed.
Yeah, and every Arab. So the easiest way for, yeah, like you say, why did it change? People found better ways, or people accepted something that's more simple to write, to read, or to print. So when the print came, that changed all of the writing in a huge way. Like one of the first things printed in press, for example, in almost all Indian languages, was the Bible at some point, because of the Portuguese came in, these people came in. So as a print thing, Bible's translations were one of these things that was printed, and that changed scripts in a big way. But why do we see these small changes? Also, is because, like for example, if you see BC third century and fourth century, the car has remained the same in some way. It's changed, and it changed back to what it was. Now, how do they identify this? So you have a few spaces where you identify it from. One is your coins, numismatics. Every coins are extremely like common across archaeology. That's the one thing you'll find all places. The next thing is temple inscriptions. So with temple inscriptions, they actually redact, they go back and find which century the temple was built in. For example, some of the temples have, like I discussed, stone inscriptions of who donated, which Devadasi donated, which king donated what to the temple, which water source, which slab, which temple, which silai, which idol was donated, or which gold ornament was donated, blah, blah, blah. Now, what happens with rebuilding of temples? Suddenly in Pondicherry, you might find a stone that of a temple that was dedicated to Kanchipuram, because to rebuild that temple, they probably picked up stones from there. That also happens. For example, in a lot of Chennai temples, you see the temple stones that have come from different temples, surrounding temples. It clearly says at some places, it's temple of this, but in the Garbhagriha of the temple, there's some other deity. So it's basically a rock that's come from another temple, because to rebuild it, they just used what was available. So they also go back there. Now, yeah, I think that's generally of why it changes. I'm sure there are many more reasons around it, because people, and the other thing is propaganda. The other thing is people have their own politics to play, and kings have their own things to do. Like every king, it's like a palimpsest. They call a palimpsest when you kind of build something over something. All our temples are that. There's Nayaks came in. Now the Madurai Meenakshi temple is so different from what, probably it wasn't that grand at all. I mean, it kept happening over time. So every ruler, every king, will want to have an impact on the culture, on scriptures. They'll start this huge, for example, Chola, the whole project of Chola or the Madurai kings was this whole cultural revolution, which is why Sangam and all we have today, because they took up this project, and as if to give us a feel. Today we say Sangam's Arjun, Sangam thrived in the Madurai kingdom. But that was because the Madurai king of the 7th, 8th, 9th century took it upon themselves to write history. Now, did they write the correct history or not is not sure. I mean, we just believe everything is right. So, which is why we get that kind of a feel that Madurai was the Chola. I mean, Madurai was the head of all the Sangam things. Madurai Tamil is different. I mean, last time we spoke about it a lot, like Madurai being all of that. Now, because the whole assignment was funded, like these days, now you have funding opportunities. There is a left-leaning organization. There's a right-leaning. I mean, the projects that comes out of it is surely, however artistic, however independent it is, there is a segment of it being playing it out to the funder. So sometimes what happens, the rulers also impact the change. They say we need to have something differently. what I, so what I remember out of this is, for example, in the Kerala court, what used to happen, like even because the new kings wanted to feel very royal, and they were not from a very from the royal family, the latest one. So I think they were from the coast. I'm forgetting the names. So for example, for them to be believed as royal, they change small things like brushing the teeth cannot be brushing the teeth. It is whitening the pearls or something, So the whole language changed. The language of the royals, they had a dictionary which had what means what to say. Like, for example, being pregnant is, I think was said, housing the Lord or something, housing the Vishnu or some said, because you, an ordinary person cannot house the Vishnu, but the queen can. An ordinary person cannot whiten pearls, but the king can, king or queen. So they change. So every king comes up with their own stuff to legitimize their rule, legitimize, and also continue to history. So it could also be that they will be like, we want it this way. That's it. Don't ask me why. Sometimes not also, sometimes just for the ease of access probably, and because different materials were used in different times, because things changed, their longevity increases. For example, paper has so and so longevity, a palmyra leaf has so and so longevity, a barcode inscription would have so and so longevity, a copper plate would have a longevity. So probably something, for example, this curviness in this, for example, was not as possible in this probably, which is right, to write it like this, probably it started looking like a dot instead of a circle. I'm just saying. So because different thing was used, so they probably changed it to something simpler. I mean, it's probably over the years, ease of access, ease of writing, ease of reading, ease of putting it up there. I think that's what governs mostly, is what I would think. And yeah, something like that. Is that
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that's majorly, I think, what it would be. Because, in the sense, you see lots of these, and it also branches out at different points. The whole branching out, for example, I about the political thing, and at some point, the Karnataka and the Andhra kings really wanted to branch it, because Kannada and Andhra scripts are very similar even now. But at some point, they were very sure that it should not look like the same, because they would always say, now even today we would call the Andhra script as the old Kannada script. I am sure, not sure if it's still there. See, it's called a Kadamba, which is also called an old Kannada script. Now, because of that hangover, we shouldn't be called. They particularly made a few changes so that they have an individual identity for different scripts. Because like we have languages, now we have borders and all of that. Even kings that time would have want a totally different script in terms of uh, uh, I mean, showing their individual prowess in that sense, individuality of, that. Uh, yeah. So yeah, it's that. I mean, I'm just giving that example of Shatavana. I think it was Shatavahanas, or so at that point in the 7th to 10th century is when the whole uh, break happened between Kannada and the Telugu scripts. Until then, it was very similar. So yeah, I mean, so that's what it to change. And how do we get to scripts? Because I think all of this also eats around each, I mean, picks from each of the other sources. Like there's script, you have your books that were written, probably the Olet Chowdi kind of thing, the bark leaf or the palm leaf manuscripts. Then you have the inscriptions, you have the coins, you have the silk. For example, some people, as much as silk was used, so silk would have been inked in some places for the Raja, those what are they called? The whatever in the you open it like this. All the kings have that. Scrolls. I was saying rolls. Yeah, scrolls. Yeah. So yeah, so from those sources we can kind of identify which century which is from also. I mean, all of these sources, because, and then you finalize this. And again, when I say third century, second century, like it's like, it's like I always give this example of expiry date. It's not that on Jan 31st, 2021, that sauce is going to turn bad. I mean, it's gradual. Slowly it'll turn bad and then it'll go bad. In the sense, on Jan 31st, 11:59, you can have it, and 2 minutes later, you can't have it. So all of these are also very gradual. I mean, so the car slowly changes over the years. Then how many people, and it also depends on which, who gets accustomed to using it. If the big wigs, if the ministers, if the poets in position use it, everyone follows it. I mean, so something like that. Yeah, I think I went overboard. I mean, I just she was like, yeah, I got what I wanted, but then I'm like, so then we spoke about the thinais, the five thinais, the Kurinji, Pale, Mullai, Marudam, Needle. Anything about that? No. Great. I mean, there's a different poems that we saw. Avayar. Yeah, we can do this a little bit now, actually. You can actually say that with me. Aram Sheyya Virambu.
Aram Sheyya Virambu.
ஆறுவது சினம்
ஆறுவது
சினம்
இயல்வது கரவேல்
இயல்வது
இயல்வது கரவேல்
ஈவது விளக்கேல்
ஈவது விளக்கேல்
so ஈவது விளக்கேல் we can do that actually, yeah then உடையது விளம்பேல்
உடையது விளம்பேல்
ஊக்கமது கைவிடேல்
ஊக்கமது கைவிடேல்
எண் எழுத்து இகழேல்
என் எழுத்து இகழேல்
எண் இகழேல்
என் எழுத்து இகழேல்.
So yen literally means for the others. I mean, yen is numbers in some sense. I mean, yennaradhu. Then எழுத்து is to write the words and then ஏற்பது இகழ்ச்சி.
ஏற்பது இகழ்ச்சி.
In the sense, now this is contextual because she herself was Avayar herself would beg for, but generally that to have that as a profession that I will only do this and get, I mean, so that is what she did, and this is intended for children. So I mean, so that's ஐயமிட்டு உன்
ஐயமிட்டு உன்
ஒப்புற ஒழுகு
ஒப்புற ஒழுகு
ஓதுவது ஒழியேல்
ஓதுவது ஒழியேல்.
This is what we spoke about last time. Monaji also was asking the Oduvad a bit, and I spoke about the Oduvar. Actually, if you go to Mylapore the next time, the Kapali temple, go in the evening time. There'll be this lovely, wonderful Oduvar who will actually recite from the Tevaram, from the Shaivite poems, hymns of the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th centuries, or the 15th century hymns in tune. They originally would have been sung in a very different sense. But like many things are, everything gets assimilated into this bigger thing. So now everything seems like Carnatic music. So they also call their ragas as, Carnatic. I mean, they have their own ragas. There's Kurunji. Actually, the Kurunji there's a raga of Kurunji also. But now, because of the equality that is made, Bhairavi is this ragam, this is that ragam. So everything has a ragam. So everything sounds like Carnatic music only. But people say at some point they would have been independent musical styles, which needn't have to have had commonalities in that sense of scale or of anything, because it was called the pannisai. Pan is what now we translate it to ragam, but one never knows what it is. I mean, we have writings, obviously there's no recording of things. Sorry,
Any ragas called puns?
So now we call say they are pun, but we really do not know if they were sung like that, because there is Yar Muri Pan, Kurunji Pan, and this Pan, and there are 108 or 103 puns that are given in the Sangha Ilakam, in the Sangam literature, and even later. And they are today equated to a few ragas of Carnatic music, like you have Bhairavi, you have Panturali. All of these ragas have Kamboji, have corresponding puns also, which a lot of scholars have unearthed. But again, because all of this is textual, we can only go so far to say that they were similar. But we can't say. I think we can't say it with with very firmly that this is what it was, because all of this was text, and then much later we kind of correlate these things. because also the correlation, like a lot of things in traditions and spirituality, they assimilate into the bigger thing. So they assimilate to Carnatic music and say that this is, for example, Purvi Kalyani was there, Bhairavi, Todi, all of this you can find punts. And it's also that all of these people sang also. Like for example, Kambaramayana himself, Kambar himself says it was sung, and the Arvars and Nayanmars, all of them, like many of them, you can also find in their sculpture and iconography. You can see them holding symbols. You can see them holding something. So it was. We are sure that they sang it, but how they sang it is something we can't make a very sure assumption. We can make an assumption. That's it. We can't be really sure of how they sang it. What was the kind of music they sang? Because at that time, also you could say the music was very similar across India, and you know from the text also what you see. So yeah, ஓதுவது ஒழியேல் ஔவியம் பேசேல்.
ஔவியம் பேசேல்.
So this is something which is called the next one, the triangle, the circle triangle. I'm just imagining if you give kids this word, they call it a triangle of 3 circles. Anyway, so it's called ik. It's called I the எழுத்து. It's very typical to Tamil. Uh, uh, yeah, it's called ik. Akkan churukkel.
Akkan churukkel.
Do not be stingy in selling food grains. So basically, for this, almost always, when you're teaching children, always a picture of this very miserly merchant is given, where he's cheating with keeping magnets under the weighing machine, something like that. So that's what it means. I mean, all of these are actually, now they are part of the educational culture, where each of these is identified with something. And over and above this, you also have the whole ka, na, cha, ta, all of that also. And she has something for that as well. Avayar in the 10th century, in the text called Atichudi. It's called Atichudi. Very surprisingly, both of these words have films on them. I mean, not related to Avayar at all, but as words, they're very famous. Atichudi is the work of Avayar. Ik is called I the எழுத்து. I the எழுத்து is actually there's also a Hindi remake of this movie. Anyway, so I mean, they're very famous in that sense as well. Yeah. We spoke about Ganam Krishnaiyer, contemporaries, where I think we spoke a lot about him, no? Last time, we kind of know what he did. So Ganam Krishnaiyer, like I said, was a break between the earlier, bigger Tanjore courts to smaller Zamindar, Mirashi kind of courts. And he had 3 patrons, which he would like go around. And when we say cities, he would go around Kumbakonam, Thiruvadai, Marudur. They were not very far off, like we say today, Bombay or Chennai. It's like pretty close, like 10, 12 kilometers, 12, 15 miles across. And they would travel on a horseback or things like that. They would go from each place, and that's what would happen. We saw Velavare. Did we say Velavare? I mean, Valivam, Shale, we did this. Okay. Do you want to do this? We'll probably do this and then move on. We'll finish one at least. I'm doubtful if we can do Mugatai Katti, but we'll do Velavare properly. Again, when people dance or sing also, they don't, I have not seen anyone sing all of them or even dance to all of them. Like I've seen the student of Balama dance, and even she would dance only until here, the first charana. But we can do this. Should we start? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry? Please say something. Okay. Chittira Pon Palka. In the sense, there is also this whole, sorry, in the last thing I wanted to say, in the Sangam, sadly, no, I'm just, it's funny, the word associations. Pal is there, Pal is teeth. I remembered how in Sangam literature also, the teeth is very important, how they say. So one very fascinating metaphor, simile is that the heroines generally identified with this beautiful set of teeth as a corn. The corn, so you see the corn, no? So it's compared to that in the Sangam literature. And it's used across in Sangam. I'm sure in some of these poems also it's used somewhere, but can't put a finger on it. But that's something you can imagine, when he's describing, that's what he's talking about. Pal Varishayum when he says. And there's also a little, not controversy, I would say, but Pal Varishayum, Vena Pani Dharita, Pal Varishayum literally means different kinds of, Vena Pani. Pani is generally they say, what do you call? Uh, Jewels also. Sometimes it's also translated to flowers. So you're not, it could either be this or that. And uh, this Vena, some people translate as much, a lot of jewels. Then some other translators also say this word instead of Vena Pani Darita could be Venda Padi Darita. So Venda Pattu is however she wants, she would have got it made and worn it. Like Venda Patti. So Venda is requirement in that sense. Venum is want. Enakku venum. Like for example, if you go to marriage, you say venum vanda. Want, I don't want. I mean beku beda. Venum vanda. Yeah. So Venda Patta is another translation that some of them give, saying that could have been that also. But most often this is what is given as because these are all oral traditions, have gone through so many people, so many ears and mouths, you never know where what could have changed. Uh, Pal Varishayum, and some people have also are more comfortable with saying as a Pala Varishayum. So when I say Pala Varishayum, I'm just giving you these extra things because when I was engaging with this poetry, I thought when I saw a few people dancing it, it's more interesting to see. Pal Varishayum is the teeth, nicely formed teeth, like corn, that's what you'll imagine because that is what people want you to imagine from the Sangam times. If you have a good row of teeth, it's basically like corn, it's like stacked like that. Now, some people also sing it as Palavarishayum. So, Venda Pattu Darita Vena Pani Darita Palavarishayum. So, they also say many rows of jewels. Like Pala Varishai. Pala is many. Varishai is, Varishai is literally patterns. For example, your Sarali Varishai is like the line of Sarigama Padanisa, the lines of it, Varishai is a sequence. Pala Varishai literally means many sequences of Venapani Darita, of Lord of Jewels, is what some people translate it as. Now, many people do this, Venapani Darita Pal Varishayum, to just say because she has rows of perfect small teeth. So that's something. Because I've seen someone dance it literally showing many sequences of jewels as well. So again, these things are also, as much as we want it to be written in stone and saying this is what it was, this is what Ganan Krishna thought in 19th century, 1825 when he wrote it, one is not sure. So it could be that also. So that's something I want to share about this. Because when I sing it also, I'm confused. Should I sing Pal Varishayum, Pala Varishayum? But this is the most common version. So that's why I picked this. Yes. Yes. So the next one is Chittirappun Palkani. Palkani. Chittirappun Palkani. Vashalile Vandu Nindru. Chittira is Chitram, again a borrowed word. Chitra is a painting kind of thing, carved image. Pun, like we saw. What does pun mean?
Gold.
Yeah. So gold, pun, palkani. Palkani is kind of lattice work, as they say. Vasalile. Vasalile is right on your doorstep, doorway, in the entrance. Vasal is your entrance. Vasalile is right there. Vasalile. Vandu is like to come there. Nindru is to stand, to having come and stood. Vandu nindru. Vandu nindru. Tayangi. Tayangi is a little element of hesitation. Tayakkam, it comes from there. Tayakkam is a little bit of hesitation. Tayakkam. Tayangi. Madi. Madi is what we saw there also. Madi Vadanamum. So moon again. Mayangi, again. Tayangi Madi Mayangi is a word play again. It sounds very poetic. Tayangi Madi Mayangi Tihait. Mayangi is again enchanted. Yeah. Then you have Tigait. Tigaite is taken aback. Tavikral. Tavikral is addressing the girl. Tavikral. When you say aval, avan, right? So aval is the girl, avan is the man. So aval, Tavikiral is she is in agony. She is distressed. Tavikiral. Instead, if you say Tavikiran, it would mean he is in distress. That's all. It's just the last addition. Tavikiral, Tavikiran. So I just wanted to add where if you, because it's Tavikiral, it is she is in distress. She's distressed. Then Kuttiram. Kuttiram is to be inhuman. Kutram. Now Kutram means, for example, a wrongdoing is called Kutram. And for example, someone who's in the jail, who's a convict is called Kutravali. So Kutram is the root word there. Kuttiram is also somewhere similar to this, being very inhuman. Kudilam is very cunning. Kutil buddhi, you say that in Hindi, Sanskrit also. So here it is a little negative. Kudilam. There's also a root word from there. Kudilam, yendrum. I mean, yendrum is a very connecting word, thinking like that, she kind of a word there. Tan is her, talayil, on the head. எழுத்து என்றும். எழுத்தென்றும் is the word. எழுத்து என்றும். எழுத்து, we just saw that there is something that's written. எழுத்து. Like we saw it in Aatichudi. என் எழுத்து. So எழுத்து is something that's written. எழுத்து என்றும். Sorry. எழுத்து எங்க இருக்கு? எழுத்தென்றும். எழுத்தென்றும். Endrum is again thinking, as you see என்று again. Here there's என்றும். Here எழுத்து என்றும். So, tan talayil எழுத்தென்றும், tan talai எழுத்தென்றும். Talai எழுத்து is literally the fate that is written on your forehead. Lalata likhitam. If you have to have it Sanskrit. Lalatam likhitam. Talai எழுத்து. Talai எழுத்து is your fate. मतलब उसका ई है. தலையில் எழுத்து என்றும், thinking that it is what is destined, fate has destined for her. That is what is forehead written, rather, for a very blunt translation. Kumuri kumuri. Kumuri kumuri matlab, it's like ro ke. It's like, bursting with this, like lot of kumuri kumuri. There's in emphasizing the idea of bursting with tears. Uruhural. Uruhural is urugardu. Urukam, uruhuadu is to melt. Like you again see, uruhural. Uruhural would mean uruhardu is to melt. Uruhural is she is melting. Uruhural. Uruhuran would be he is melting. But uruhural here, so uruhural, she is melting. Miga vadi, much pining. Miga vadi. Vadi has to vadi is also something like you call someone, a girl, a little disrespectful, a little very familial, where you know someone very well and she's much younger to you. You can do the D but it's like the masculine of bay in Hindi, feminine of bay in Hindi. The D. Sometimes it's considered not so right. Also, in some families, you don't disrespect women by calling them D. But many families are also understood as very close. If someone's really close, then they call them D. So anyway, but formal occasions they don't call. So Vadi is also that. Vadi, come you girl. But I'm just giving you the other thing. Here, Vadi means to like flowers, wilt. Vadi, poo vadi pochu is a flower has wilted away, has dried up. So this vadi is that pining away, like a flower. It's comparing then back to the flower pining. Kumuri kumuri uruhural miga vadi velavare umai tedi. So that's where the word comes. Miga vadi velavare umai tedi. So that vadi tedi comes there. And here again, kumuri kumuri uruhural, mayangi tigaithu tavikkiral. So when you see those words, தயங்கி மதி மயங்கி தயங்கி மதி மயங்கி திகைத்து தவிக்கிறாள் குத்திரம் குடிலம் என்றும் தன் தலையில் எழுத்தென்றும் குமுறி குமுறி உருகிறாள் மிக வாடி வேலவரே உமை தேடி. So that's how you end it, and then you add it. So who's volunteering to read it out?
Balakrishna, may I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Madi Mayangi, exactly, I did not understand. Madi Mayangi.
So one that would when you say, for example, in English they say moonstruck, like you're struck, like it's one set of mayakkam is also there, which is in terms of being enchanted. But madi mayangi, they translate it as moonstruck. Or mari abdiye also comes in some of the songs. But basically it means at some point what do you say, she's in a state of distress, she's fainting, she's moonstruck. Generally it is considered to be something that's cooling, but in this case, because it's the night time, probably also because she's been waiting for a long time, she's also moonstruck in that sense of being fainting, because she's been waiting since the night until the morning hasn't come, but all through the night she's been waiting for Velavan. So it's somewhere around that.
And Putram Kudilam Yendrum. Putram Kudilam Yendrum.
So here, like I said, she's wondering, how can he be so mean to me? How can he be so inhuman, cunning? That she wonders, that the Sakhi is saying that she wonders, how can Murugan be so bad?
Oh.
Like he's saying that this woman, this Nayaki, is thinking, how can Murugan be so bad? She's wondering why her fate is so bad. Why is my fate like this? Why is my Lalata Likhitam, whatever is so bad, is what she's wondering. Thinking thus, she's crying and she's pining for you. You wail over it. And he is saying all of this.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Kuttiram Kutilam Yendrum, Tan Talayil Yelthu Yendrum, Yendrum is like, ayo, she is thinking, Ide Endrum, Adendrum, Aval Yosikiral kind of an idea. That Ide Endrum, Adendrum, this Naika is basically pining. Having said that, this Sakhi is saying, this Naika is pining, asking if her fate is like this. She wonders how inhuman and how mean Murugan is. Tayangi, Mayangi. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that. Because I also, for example, generally moon is generally, used for good. Like you have a Panimadi Mukhi Bale, like this beautiful moon-like face. But here, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lovely song in Ahiri, right?
Ahiri. There's a Sakhi. Again, this Sakhi is to be so beautiful. She's the one who has Madhira. Sakhi is given so much. She's been pampered so much by the Naika, because she's the one who has to go and tell him. So she's the beautiful one. She's the one with intoxicating eyes. She's the one. Yeah. Anyway, so yes. So do you want to read someone? Anyone? Hey. Yeah. I'll pick someone if.
Shravani, you want to try? Because all the others already know. Or Rucha maybe. Rucha?
Or if you want some time, take some time. I'll finish the other one. Then we can do one each. I don't know if that's okay. Yeah. If you want to do it and take a snapshot of this and work with it. Anyway, so the next thing is, again, she continues. Now, what we have seen is in Velavare, if we go back, so this damsel, this really young woman who's been waiting for you, oh Lord, and all night she's been waiting for you, which is why probably the moonstruck idea also makes sense, because she has just been looking at the moon and she's just like, what is this? He's not coming to me. And what are you doing to Vagai? And Vagai is literally, what is this? What are you doing to her? Like, oh Muruga, what are you doing to this pavam little girl who's been waiting for you? And then she says, then she describes her. Now, oh God, there's this very fascinating thing. Probably we'll need another lecture at some point about how there is an Agam Puram even within the Pallavi, Anupallavi, and Charanas of this, which we'll probably do at some point. But if we go, we'll just finish. I mean, there's so much. I want to do some more Sangam also. But so yeah, now also think about these things when you actually read a Padam. Think about what is Agam, what is Puram in it, things like that. Is that Agam, is that Puram, is it love, is it, is it external, is it the inness, is it the outwardness of it and stuff. Think about it when you read Padams. It's a very, I think, judicious engagement with time. When, for example, like I spoke last time, I was reading something about Balamma. So before she would go for a concert, before she had a dance recital, all through the days, she would be singing the songs. There would, when it got nearly close for the last 3-4 days before a dance recital, she would always keep singing the song, humming the songs. And that's it. She will not dance per se, because that was her way, because music is the way for the dances, because this is so driven by, it's not abstract, it is driven by text, it is driven by poetry, it is driven by raga, it is driven by all of this. For her, it was the music that worked, and as much as she sang, that much of it went within her. It was so inherently coming to her. And then when she danced, it was a different thing. Like, I think I remember Aniruddha, her grandson, talking about it, how she would just keep singing the songs or humming the songs at least before the recital. And that's what would end up in the concert on stage when she would dance. It was because of the amount of singing she did of the song. So I think, I mean, it's a good practice to sing it, however good or bad, but singing it is important because that is a way to engage with it, because you're engaging it with the body instead of the mind, because you can think about it, but unless you sing it or say it at least, so that's why I put that thing of you should say it, because you need to know how they sound. What is the cadence of the word? What is the cadence of poetry? Valibamum shale will puruvam vadivam noolidayum madi vadanamum melum aval meni pashum pon niramo melum aval meni pashum pon niramo. He's asking a question. Melum, over and above all of this, all of her eyes and eyebrows and waist, all of this, over and above this many pashum. Now he has described everything. Now he's going to the mania, the whole self of the body, from smaller parts. He's gone to the eyes, the eyebrows, vadivam and nool idayum, the waist, and madiva, the face. Melum aval many pashum pon niramo. It's shining like bright gold, which is also the color of people if you come southwards. It's, a wheatish, brownish color, which is like, they translate it to a golden, burning gold, which also, finally enough, is just the color that finishes the sunset and into the night. So there's that color. There's so much play in it. Minnal Kodiyo. I mean, it's so important. The Minnal Kodiyo, I've seen someone dance. It just suddenly, it is Minnal. It comes like this, like a flash of lightning. So when you embody that, it should come. The song also says that. For example, மேலுமவள் மேயனி பசும் பொன்னிறமோ மின்னல் கொடியோ அன்னநடையோ மின்னல் கொடியோ, because it is flashing, it's like lightning. மின்னல் கொடியோ அன்னநடையோ. And then nadayo becomes again the graceful swan's walk. So minnal kodiyo annadayo yelana velavare. So it's in the music, which is why it's important to understand that these are all Vagekaras who sing, write poetry, and it happens at that moment. The poem comes, the talam, the ragam, words, all of it come together at one place, which is why it makes sense that the tune is also like this. Anyway, I'll keep going on with that. I think we should move on in life.
Balakrishnan, what is Oyilagave?
Hoyalagave is or madri, very graceful. Hoyalu, that grace is also a word in Telugu, they say. In the Tamil, because I guess because the ha is not a word in the Tamil script. It's coming from it's called a vada, a northern syllable, northern letter. Ha, sa, and all. So Hoyalagave becomes Hoyalagave, kind of that.
Yeah, because I am not called, I used to be called Mogana, not Mohana.
Ha, see, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Mogana, exactly. So the ha is not there. So a lot of these words, Raghavan and all are written as Iraghavan because in the written context, a word cannot start with Ra. We have to add a vowel E before it. Iragavan, Irada, things like that in the written thing. So, for example, Srirangam, Rangan is called Arangaman, Arangaman, Srirangam, Arangam. So, I mean, so there are these, I mean, it's there. Yeah. Like, for example, I mean, in popular culture now, if you have to call Rahman, if you have to write it, most of them will write it as Raguman. Even in, if you see channel, like the channels, they'll say AR Raguman, Avargal Vandar, you know, but that's how the word is. It's different. So,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So, yes. Yes. Kanna, what is kan? Eyes, yes, I heard it. I heard it through the mute of Rishali. Yes. Yes. கண்களுக்கு கண்களுக்கு through the eyes. கண்களுக்கு आंखों के लिए that's आंखों wait கண்களுக்கு கலநீரை so
Aankhon se, right? Aankhon se.
आंखों से that's what I was trying to say आंखों को से yeah to or from that kind of thing yes கண்களுக்கு ஐயோ yes கண்களுக்கு கல நிறை நீரை sorry நீரை நீரை is again a root word what does neer mean water so நீரை is water color in some sense here is a lot of copious a lot of I mean here it basically yeah she continuously sheds copious pearl like tears now கண்களுக்கு is aankhon se like she said in color நீரை முத்து முத்தாய் முத்து முத்தாய் உகுக்கிறாள் உகுக்கிறாள் முத்து முத்தாய் so muttu again is one of those very famous root words that have gone from here to there from the south to the north they also say it's from the munda there's this whole big munda tribe also they say it's also from there so for example rice have I spoken about rice no I haven't so arishi is rice in Tamil Arishi. So that went all the way to Greece and all of that. So Arishi became rice eventually, is what people say. And Muttu is Tamil for pearl, and Mukta came from there. So there are a few words that have traveled the other way around. I mean, they're all obviously there are a lot of words that have come down from there, like neer and all of that you see very commonly used. There are these few words. Again, these are all you can guess with some certainty. Again, you can't say this is what happened in 231 BC on the September 27th. This happened, but you know, it is just people find earlier inscriptions. Now they find an inscription of Mukta before they find here, that'll change. So it just yeah. Muttu Muttai Ukiral. Kaiyai. Kaina, what does Kai mean? Hand, yes. No, I got it. Yeah. Kaiyai, Nerit. Nerit is to just, what do you call, press it very harshly. Nerit. For example, if someone kills someone, you know, ऐसे करके, so कழுத்த நெரிச்சு கொன்னுட்டார் they say. Nerichi is to kind of press it closely. Nerit. Kaiyai nerit in terms of this. Just doing this. Talai kunindu. Talai is head. We saw that again. Talai எழுத்து before, no? Talai எழுத்து. Talai kunindu. Kunindu is to bend forward in that sense. Kunindu. Nirkiral. She is standing. Nirkiral, ugukiral is again all she. Ugikiran, Nikiran would be he. So that's another thing. Nirkiral, she stands there. Basically, it means she stands, frigid, wrings her hands, bent down with grief. That whole idea here. பெண்களுக்கு உங்கள் again like most of these padams the last charanam is when suddenly it becomes very divine until then it's very you know it crosses that whole thing of madhura bhakti that says a sense of love and all of that suddenly at the end it becomes oh muruga it becomes the divinity happens at the last place somewhere there so now she is basically பெண்களுக்கு உங்கள் திருவுளம் Pengalukku is for women generally. Pen is girl, An is man, boy. Pen, An. Pengalukku, to the popular, to the many, to all the women generally. Pengalukku, ungal. Ungal is your. Pengalukku, ungal. Tiru ullam. Tiru ullam. Tiru, like I said in the past, is something with something that's sacred. Tiruchirappalli, whatever. We went through that whole list, no? Thiru Ullam. Ullam is your heart. So Ullam is not mind or heart. Ullam is this whole being that's comprising of everything. You can't say mind or heart. Like I was contemplating what to put there, with the heart or mind. Heart is the more closer one, I thought, but it's both, mind and heart. That whole being. Ullam is your whole being in that sense, comprising of your mind, your heart, yourself, more or less. Irangado. Irangado is a question. Will it not take pity? Can it not take pity? What can not take pity? Your Tiruvullam, your sacred self, can't it take pity? Pengalukku, for the women. Pengalukku, ungal Tiruvullam irangado. For the women, your sacred self, will it not take pity? That's that. Pesi, Maruvi. Yes, interesting. Pesi is to speak. Maruvi is also has another meaning of uniting. Maruvi we also spoke about in the past about that's the root is different. Marab, okay, let's not get it. It's easier this way. Maruvi is to unite, and mun polave sera. So now he again says this is also that's used in many of these padams. Mun polave sera. This happened already, but I just want you to come again. So there is a fixation that it happened at some point in time, which you actually see in a few of these padams also. Like for example, in Osho, see, you have this. Muddu Natesha that says Mundu. So he says the kiss that you shared before, the Lord knows of the kiss that we shared before. So it is in a way legitimizing this desire because it is not something that hasn't happened. It has happened. And so I'm asking you to come again. Like even, we spoke about Panimedi a little while ago. Even in that, he says, she says, we have spent all of this time in the past in love, in union. Now, why don't you come? So I'm not going to the song, but this is what it means. I mean, you can always go back and see because it also gives a sense of sense of it having happened in the past. It's not an impossibility. She knows what she's talking about, and it's not something she's asking for the first time. It's happened already. And also, I think it traces back to the Sangam times because all these Agam poetry, the 5 Tinais that we saw, the 5 ideas, are all about. Nothing of them is about unrequited love in some sense. When I say unrequited, I don't mean unrequited in the sense of separation, but both of them do like each other. And there is separation and all of that happens over time. And even after marriage, he goes to the courtesan, but still, he still loves her. But there's some element that he goes to the courtesan, whatever happens. But all of those 5 cases are within the small boundary of love that is not unrequited, love that is both agreeing to it. In a way, they also wanted to say, even in a place where both of them like, there's so many problems. And there are 2 more Tinais where which are not generally quoted with as part of this, which is for the other kind of Kalittogai in the so there it's used in unrequited sense, where sometimes he does not even know that is happening, or she does not know he loves her. So that is not even love in the Sangam time. It's only love when both of you are in love with each other. And the Agam corpus is about that. So anyway, so I think that also re-emphasizes while I was reading that, I was just thinking it could be that also, because many of these padams, you see that thing of it has happened in the past, I saw it in a dream. Niddirayil also has Niddirayil Shopanatil Netratiri Medinil. So Niddirayil Shopanatil, in my dream last night I saw us in union, it goes in that way. So there is also legitimization that it has happened in the past. I'm just asking you to come again. So that's again, I don't know how much of it will be used at different points while you engage with it, but all of these points are to be, I mean, they probably add in different ways toward how you engage with the text. Kangal, kaiyai, pace. So see this, ka, pe. These are also elements that you could look at when you engage with it. Yeah. பேசி மருவி முன் போலவே சேர வேலவரே உம்மை தேடி. So how much time do we have? Okay. Okay, she can. I think it's so. I mean, you read it. Probably, I'll do one thing. If instead of asking and putting on Bakri to saying you do it, I'll just say it, and then you can repeat it at your own pace in mute or however you want it. Because now there's little time to beg and get people to do it. Or if you're okay, just come along. You have 5 seconds. Good. Super. Shittirapun.
Shittirapun.
Palkani.
Palkani.
Vasalile.
Vasalile.
Vandu nindru. Tayangi. Madimayangi. So when you say it, it'll be nice to say Tayangi Madimayangi. Tihaithu. Tavikkiral. Suffering. Kuttiram. Kudilam. Endrum. Kuttiram Kudilam Endrum. Tan Talayil எழுத்து என்றும்.
No, I didn't get that.
Tan
Can you repeat?
Talayil. Tan Talayil. எழுத்து என்று. ஐயோ.
எழுத்து என்று.
This one touch screen thing. Touch it will go. தன் தலையில் எழுத்து என்றும்.
தன் தலையில் எழுத்து என்றும்.
Kumuri. So ideally, how would you write it in Tamil also, in sometimes English also? It's kumuri. That ik will come as part of the first word itself because it's the starting bit of the second word. Kumuri. Because it also says the of the two words. Kumuri. Or if you have to split kumuri, if you have to like do that 0.25 speed. But one speed, kumuri.
Kumuri.
Uruhural. Kumuri uruhural.
உருகுறாள்.
மிகவாடி வேலவரே உமை தேடி.
No.
மிகவாடி வேலவரே உமை தேடி. That is this. It comes back. மிகவாடி வேலவரே உமை தேடி.
மிகவாடி வேலவரே உமை தேடி.
வேலவரே உமை தேடி. So that's that. கண்களுக்கு. கண்களுக்கு. நீரை. கல small கல நீரை முத்தாய் உகுக்கிறாள். கையை நெரித்து தலை குனிந்து நிற்கிறாள். தலை குனிந்து நிற்கிறாள். You can
தலை குனிந்து நிற்கிறார்.
She is standing with head bent down. பெண்களுக்கு உங்கள்
பெண்களுக்கு உங்கள்
பெண்களுக்கு உங்கள் திருவுளம்
திருவுளம்
இறங்காதோ?
இறங்காதோ?
Can it not take pity? Your that self, your sacred self, can it not take pity? Irangado. Irangado literally means irangaradu is literally to come down. Iranga yetam irakkam. Yetam is to get up. Irakkam is to Irakkam also means to have pity. Irakkam is to generally melt down, come down. That idea of because you have this song. Irakkam varamal ponadinna karanam irakkam. That is also irakkam. Irakkam, irangardu. It's all to come down. Matlab niche aake giving the whatever. So that's that. Pesi maruvi.
பேசி மருவி
முன் போலவே சேர வேலவரை உமை தேடி.
வேலவரை உமை தேடி.
பேசி மருவி முன் போலவே. முன் போலவே मतलब like before, exactly before. Mun is like we saw, no, before. Pin so mun is okay. Mun is also it's very subjective where you use it, because we also saw munne pinne. Munne is to forward, pinne is backwards. Mun polave matlab pehle jaisa, literally, but pehla also means before, no, like pehle jaisa, but pehla also means mujhse pehle ho aap, that pehle. So is munne pinne pehle, mun pehle jaise, that pehle also, earlier in time. So that is velavare. So basically, if you see, if you break this whole padam, first she's talking, this Sakhi is again, so there's this character, so there's the Sakhi, this lady, and Murugan. So Sakhi is saying, oh, she is addressing Murugan. This is also a common trope from the Sangam times, where in Sangam you had all these characters. There's a Sakhi, there's a Nayaka, there is Nayakan, but they would have been called Talaivan and Talaivi. Nayaka, because Nayaka is a much later word. I mean, to at least Tamil corpus. Talaivan and Talaivi, the hero and the heroine. And there's this friend. And there's the heroine's mother also who comes in. Then 5-6 people are there generally across. Generally, the mother is the one who says, oh, you mad girl, with whom do you fall in love? This man or that man. And she scolds her. Or she says, oh, my girl is pining away for this mad man. What is the point? We see that same thing much later as an Indastuti in a lot of Shiva compositions. The mother is saying, what is this? Parvati has fallen in love with this mad Shiva who has no clothes. Who's this? Who's that? Yes. So first she says she's searching for you all night. She's been waiting for you and you haven't come. What are you doing with her? I mean, what have you done to her, kind of a thing, question. Then she speaks about her as a person, as the bodily self of her, like how she describes herself. Now then she goes on, this is what we did, no? Valibam. This is the Anupallavi. Sorry, we're only coming to Anupallavi. This is the Anupallavi, where she goes on to her bodily self. Then again, she continues on that trope of she wears this, she wears that, her body, more about the body and all of that. Then she talks about how she feels, the feeling of her, in terms of, she starts scolding Murugan and she's pining away. The idea of this charana is basically that. I mean, her mental self, what has it become? She's, bending and crying and whatever. And this is the first stage of some sort. In the sense, talking, she's distressed. Then she takes it further, and the next thing, she stands, fidgets, cries, she's bent down, like kumuriko, like agara, apdi ugukiral, like, is a whatever. It extends that idea and then asks the Lord, we have done this before, so please come. You have done this before with her, so please come. So that's the kind of this is what I wanted to. Ammayar, okay. Yes, Ammayar, the fascinating ladies of the Nayanmar set. Nayanmar are the Shaivite saints. Say it loud from wherever you are. Nayanmar is the Shaivite saint. Arvar is the Vaishnavite saints. These two post Sangam, post Ilango Adigal, post Tiruvalluvar, post Sheetalai Satana, these were the people who formed the biggest corpus of literature, of poetry, bhakti poetry. To say that, in the sense, a lot of people have claimed the idea of bhakti poetry starts from these two sects of people, moves westwards to Karnataka, moves upwards to Maharashtra, then moves to Mira, Kabir, everywhere, west, north, everywhere. So that's how the flowering of the Bhakti movement takes place. Yes, Bhakti movement is very diverse. It takes different forms, and across all these times also there were poets across these places. But in the sense of, if you had to trace it, if you had to, in a linear sense of time, that's how it happened. Because the first of these poets were here in Arvars and Nayanmars and then Arvars. Nayanmars were about 63 in number. Arvars, not about, they are six, sorry. Nayanmars are 63 in number. Arvars are 12 in number. Nayanmars have about 5 women in them of the 63. Arvars has one, Andal. And Andal is so special that in most of the Vaishnava temples in South India, apart, so you'll have one building for Vishnu, for Perumal is what he's called, Perumal. Then you have one for Tayar, which is Lakshmi. Almost invariably, you'll have one more for Andal. Andal is the other lady in most of the Vishnu temples. She's the next to the goddess. So, and her is what we celebrate, her Tirupavai, a 30 Pavai, Nombu, they say. Nombu is a vrat kind of thing. Pavai across the 30 days of Marhari, which happens mostly from December 15th to Jan 15th. You know everything about Marhari generally. That's celebrated in terms of Andal's 30 days. So it's Andal who's, in the past, they were also, it was tried to just get her out of the whole corpus. In some centuries, you don't find Andal at all because men were like, oh, how can women write? And no, she's not part of this. And then much later, she was again added, and so there were these points of the removal of Andal, then rejoining back to the this thing. And in terms of Nayanmar, I don't see a specific comparison of removing and adding. There were some people who were just not added at a later point. That's it. And all of this happened around 10th, 11th, 12th century when the adding happened. For example, in the Chola kingdom, at some point, am I too loud or is it enough volume? Enough volume. Okay, I should just. So in the Chola kingdom, at one point, what happened again because of the whole cultural revolution to when Brihadishwara temple and all is built, there was this whole idea. Until then, Chidambaram was the bigger temple. Chidambaram was the center and all of that. Chidambaram and so there were these thing of inside the Chidambaram temple, there were all these Ola Chaudi. There were these palm leaf scriptures, they said. And the pujaris there said, no, we can't open. There was one bhandar, one locked room, like in all these horror movies. If you open these things will happen. No one will let you. I mean, all these stories come from there. Those stories. So you can't enter if you open those things. Bad things will happen to the country. Bad things will happen to people. Da da da. But then the king was like, no, I will have it opened. Because it should be noted that Chola king, was the project of cultural. This thing happened. Redaction happened at his point of time. So that happened. Then the pujaris are no, it can't be done. And like almost always we have. Like the Shastras always have these side routes and all. So then this fellow, I don't know how he did it, bribed some people, I don't know. So he got made. So then these pujaris said something very extraordinary, which can't happen. They said, unless the 63 Nayanmars come and vouch, I will not open this. They said that. Unless they come in person and tell, you can open this and give it to the king, I will not do it. Then he's like, okay, then we'll do what we can. So he got made 63 sculptures of Nayanmars and had all of them taken by 63 different people, each one holding a sculpture. And he said, I have, that whole thing of the whole idea of the soul of the deity getting into that stone, that kind of thing. So he had done all of that. He said, now this is that only. Now they are them only. Now you open. So they opened it. And this is the story. Again, I have not gone and seen that this is what happened. There's a story of how it was opened how it was opened, and we got those things. So then the Nayanmars, the Tevaram, all of these, there's like huge number of compositions of all the 63 saints have come in. So one of the earliest of those saints is Ammayar. Ammayar is supposed to be from the place of Karaikal, which is still there today in Tamil Nadu. So she was born as Punitavadi. The name is given as Punitavati, which literally means someone very chaste. Punidamana, or someone who's very chaste and very pious and all of that. So the story goes that she was a great bhakta of Shiva. And most of these Nayanmars or Arvars, many of them are very ordinary people, and most often, like it's in the Bhakti cult, most of them are from the lower rungs of society in terms of class or caste. Yes, you have had instances where a king or a Brahmin man has been there, but mostly it's from the lower rung generally. So, like you have what is that? Aubai, Zanabai, things like that. So Ammayar, mostly from the merchant caste, from the merchant community, Punitavadi, and she was a great bhakta of Shiva. There's a very simple story of how at some point she gets two mangoes, and her husband brings it to her, and Shiva, to test her devotion. There's always the idea of testing. No? So Shiva comes in as someone else, as a rishi, and comes in and asks for something. Then she gives him the mango in that sense. So he likes it very much, and I think the story goes. Yeah, and he goes off. Then the husband comes to eat at home, and he asks for the mango or something. He says, "Very good, give me the other one." Now she goes into the kitchen. Today it might sound like a very simple story, but probably then it was a big thing. She goes to the kitchen and she's like, "Oh, what do I do now?" And then she prays to Shiva, and Shiva gives her the mango. And then very surprisingly, very like tadang tadang tadang, that serial moment happens, and there's one mango comes, and she gives the mango to this husband, and husband, "Oh, what is this? This is so tasty. I've never eaten such a mango. What is this? What is the secret? Give me another one." Then the other one comes. Then he's like, he's scared. He asks her, "What happened? Where is this coming from?" She's like, "Shiva gave me," like full, like after a bit of this thing, she says it's because of the grace of Shiva. So this guy gets really scared. He thinks she's like one, and he falls at her feet. "I don't know what I've done. Please, you look like some magician, some weird thing. So I'm sorry for whatever I've done. I'm sorry for all the faults in my past." And he falls at her feet, and he says, "Take care of yourself. I'm going." So he just leaves. He's very scared to live with this woman who's apparently churning out mangoes and saying it's from Shiva and possibly some magician, something. So he goes away. And so that's how it starts. Then she is then smitten by the whole idea of Shiva Bhakti, which is also already a Shiva Bhakta. So she writes a lot of hymns on Shiva, and then she is one of those prime people, important people who is supposed to have also influenced the iconography of the Nataraja that we see today, with that left leg up and holding those, the fire in one hand, and Man, Maru, all of that. She's uh, said to be one of those prime influences of that idea. So that is Ammayar, and apparently she is one of them because, again, like Mahadevi Akka, like all these women saints also, at some point they would have had to face a lot of men who were trying to use them, trying to say, because these were women in the community who were without any male support in that sense. So they were very easily, the male gaze, all of that would happen very often. For which is why, for example, Nakka Mahadevi gave up all her clothes. I mean, what is this? I mean, which is why also which we paint Akka Mahadevi now in sculptures as if she has like long hair to cover herself, but you never know what happened there. Because now we are more scared about this thing than they themselves were at that point. But so what Ammayar did was she prayed to Shiva saying, give me body of just skin and bones, that people would be afraid of me. And so immediately, which is why all of her iconography, you see very, very thin bodied, very saggy breasts, and it's very ghost-like looking, because she wanted to disassociate herself from the sensuousness of a lady and have an appearance of a ghost-like appearance, that nothing would happen. Also, she asked, apparently, that turned me into this old woman. That's it. And there's a story of how eventually, while her singing in many, many years, she finally goes to Kailasha. And as she nears Kailasha, when she steps, she doesn't want to step on Kailasha, because Shiva is so pious. Shiva is so whatever. Is such a great force. He's the Lord. His abode. How can I step on his abode? So the story goes as if she walked on her hands this way, which is also come in popular culture. Apparently, she walks on her hands on Kailasha to finally eventually get moksha. But while she starts walking on her hands, Shiva's Parvati is supposed to have asked Shiva, "Who's this woman? What is she doing? What's happening?" So Shiva apparently would have said, "Avaliyan Ammai." Shiva apparently would have said, "She is my mother," which is why the Ammayar epithet comes to her. Ammai. Ammai is a mother. Amma, Ammai. Ammai is a very respectful saying of mother. Ammai Appan. Appan is father, Ammai is mother. Shiva is supposed to have the Avalian Ammai. So since then, the epithet of Ammayar. Ammayar is a very respectful, like Tiruvalluvar, Mangir Karasiyar, all this end of R is like G, kind of that. So Ammayar is what happens to her. Oh, so that's Karaikal Ammayar. Very fascinating story. There's also a movie made, obviously, like we can't like. So there's a Tamil movie. You might want to go watch it, Karaikal Ammayar. I don't know if there are subtitles, but it's an interesting story. I mean, it's the same story. Yeah, I mean, you can find her a lot in museums and stuff because her form is has fascinated a lot of sculptures in across ages, and mostly in a very elaborate Nataraja sculpture, you'll always see her as a small girl, ghost-like feminine figure with like long pointed breasts sitting down. Yeah. Yeah, there's a little complicated. If we have time, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll try to. I think we'll. Sugalum அழல்விழி கொள்ளிவாய்ப் பேய் சூழ்ந்து துணங்கையிட்டோடியாடி தழலுள் எரியும் பிணத்தை வாங்கி தான் தடி தின்றனன் காடு காட்டிர் கழலொலி ஓசை சிலம்பொலிப்ப காலுயர் வட்டனை இட்டு நட்டம் அழல் உமிழ் தோரி கதிக்க ஆடும் அப்பன் இடந்திரு ஆலங்காடே. So Tiru Alangade is a place that he would have danced. Tiru Alangade is a place if you actually go and search. So she's talking about this Shivan who dances amidst all of these. This is the translation if you want to quickly go through this. It also reminds one of the whole idea, the idea of the yogis, the siddhas from Banaras, and you think of this whole death and flesh and the whole cult. What is that called? Sorry, I forget.
Aghori.
Aghoris. So it reminds you of that idea, Aghori cult, and with their mouths, eyes ablaze, the ghouls perform Tunangai dance is a dance that's been mentioned in Sangam even afterwards. We don't know exactly what it is, but it is a kind of dance. So here, for example, if you see dancing in the cremation ground with leg lifted and anklets ringing, revolving body erect. So imagine the words revolving body is erect. How can it just straight and revolving, and the idea of Shiva dancing with one foot on the ground, emitting flames. So this is one of those poems. I mean, if you read all of them, she at different points mentions about the fire in his hands, different aspects. The man, Maru, they say. For example, in Mugattai Kati, you speak about man, Maru. Maru is the fire itself. Man is the deer. So those things are mentioned across. So many they also claim that she was one of those because most of the Nataraja things we see today are also from the period of Chola bronzes, So they say, okay, after 200 years of her writing, 200, 300 years, so it's probably her contribution is there. Because I mean, artists need some, something to work on, some, what is it called? Template to work on. So this probably is that, they say. I mean, other people have also written, the other Nayanmars have also, but they say she's one of the first. Because she's one of the first Nayanmars, she would have influenced it much more than the other people. Yeah, generally. For example, if you see here, Agal Umul Tori Kadika Adum. Kadika Adum. It's just burning in that kada 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 when it's very, that embers when you that Kadika Adum Appan. Appan, like I said. And sorry, as a continuation to that story of this, there's a story of how Parvati asks and he says Ammai is coming. And there's a story of either Karakal Ammayar hearing that or even Parvati asking again. So she says Appane Naan Varigiren. So Appan, she calls him the father. So it's that whole idea because she calls him Appan. This is why, which is what you see here also. Adam Appan Yidantira Alangade. So this was a very Ammayar is like she wanted to be a slave of Shiva. There is no idea that I want to be an equal. I want to be your. There's no idea of union. There's no idea of romantic devotion. The whole idea of bridal mysticism, that Madhura Bhakti is not there. She is like a slave. She says, I'm a slave of Shiva. You are my Appan. You are my God, Lord, whatever. In comparison, you come to Andal, which is completely bridal mysticism. She imagines Vishnu as her husband, her union, and he's the only man she can marry. He's the only man worth she can marry. Similarly, you find the same in Akka Mahadevi, who says, Shiva is dancing on my palm. He's that close to me. And Meera again. So that's the idea that comes later. Ammai. Oh, God, there's so much, so interesting things. What do I cover? What do I leave? It's probably not to Mugattai Kati. I mean, we know Mugattai Kati and Deham is literally, Mugattai is, this is written by Papa Vinasa Mudaliyar, a Ninda Stuti, which is already in practice a little before him by Muttu Tandavar, who's famously have written Tervil Varano. I just wrote so that you can have some connection of, who, this is also kind of chronological. There's Muttu Tandavar who came first, then Papa Vinasa Mudaliyar. In terms of Tamil Padam composition per se, then you have a Marimutta Pillai. Then you have Uthugada Venkata Subbayar. His padams are also lost in his songs. I don't know if, again, the whole things of padam and kriti is debatable. The songs were lost and then they were refound, all of that. So, that is his. Arunachala Kavirayar is supposed to have come after that. Who would say, the very famous episode from Ramayana, where she's stuck. He's struck by seeing this. And in some references, it's also said he thought it was a sculpture. And then Rama is, because he's a connoisseur of arts, he's seeing this beautiful sculpture of a woman. Very beautiful, very gorgeous, very smitten. He was very smitten by it. And suddenly, as he sees it, apparently the sculpture blinks and he's like, oh, what have I done? I've looked at a woman like that, and he feels so bad. And that was apparently Sita, and that's how they meet in some reference. And in different stories, different meetings happen. Like in Valmiki, they don't even see because it's full like sacred muddy, all of that. They don't even see. Then slowly in Ram Charitmanas, they're playing some balls, and suddenly one ball comes. And you know how people have also changed the story of Ram meeting Sita across over the ages. The first meeting, how it happened. So anyway. So this is much later. So they took liberty and said, oh, they saw and all. For example, Tyagaraja says how Sita saw in Kanakana Ruchira. He says how while Sita is adjusting her bangles, at the corner of her eye, she sees Rama who comes. కళకలిగిన సీత కులుగుచునోర కన్నులను ఓర కన్నులను జూచే కనకన రుచిర కలకల మనుముఖ కళకలిగిన I forgot. I just sang it. So for Tyagaraja is imagining it like that, while Sita, and it imagines like, from like, kind of first floor, she's like, she can't see openly. So she's just doing her bangles and suddenly, while doing that, she acts as if she's whatever. So there are different versions. So Arunachala Kavirayar is that. Then in the 19th century, you have all of these people. Ganam Krishna Iyer, Kavi Kunjara Bharati, Vaidishram Gol Subramaya, Gopal Krishna Bharati. There were people after that, for example, Ambujam Krishna and all come much later, which is very recent as of now. But this is until what Padams we do is more or less around this period. Ganam Krishna, I didn't put anything because we already did delivery and all. But yeah. Yes, this is something I just wanted to, say that these are all the people. So you should identify that these are all people that were there. I'm sure there are more people, but this is the generally accepted corpus who have a lot of compositions. Like there are many Carnatic composers. You only say Tyagaraja this. So it's like that. uh, yeah, something about continuity. I wanted to speak about the idea of continuity also. Sherum Yendralin Pandaitan. Yes, sir. It's a lovely Sangam poem uh, from the Kurundogai. I think it's Kurundogai 325. Uh, so, what does it say? I'll probably let you read the translation. Yeah? Yeah?
Yes.
This is a Sangam poem from Kurundogai. Now, when you read this, Sherum Yendralin, I think we'll just skip it. I mean, I'll just read it up. We don't have too much time, I guess. Uh, so this is you kind of got the idea of the poem, what she's saying. This is generally when he said, I'll go." It's also like these. So the girl is saying, the Nayaki, the heroine, the Talaivi is talking about this fellow who was left. Like when he was saying all of that, I was like, I'll let him go because he had said that too many times, all of that. And so finally he goes. That is where it hurts me the most. Also, where am I? God. Yes. Also, there is the other thing about Sangam is the other thing about Sangam is Sangam literature, all the poetry. There are all these colophons that are there that we find today. So there's something written before, written after. So scholars always feel that's obviously done at a later point in time, or they sometimes feel it's also done together, because now the colophones around for this would be like they have had a fight and he has left her. It gives you the avatar, some kinds of introduction, the setting, scene setting, like you have in Jayadeva's Ashtapadi. You have a scene setting before, right? So it is something like that. Is there something in the chat? Did I miss something? Okay. Sorry, I just saw the chat and there was something. Okay. So, for example, the colophon and Sangam literature for this poem would probably say they've had a fight and she has left her. She regrets her actions, now pines for him. She says, it's just an explanation on all of that, but also an introduction of who says who, what to whom, kind of a thing. Here, if you see a few things about the most important, yes. So here, the important part I would say is the around where suddenly, for a few times, he's just talking about, I wonder, the place has filled up with tears and becomes a pond where a black-legged white heron feeds. So it's very stark imagery that she speaks of here. It's this one specifically is written by a man, but then it's from a woman's perspective. Now, cut to 800 years later, 700 years later, we have Andal, who says, Vinnila Melappu Virittar Pol Megangal, Tennir Pai, Vengadathen, Tirumalum, Pondane, Kannirgal. So I'll also notice the poetry. Vinnila, Tennir Pai, Kannirgal, Pennir Mai. Is the Dvitiya Akshara Prasa. The second syllable is constant across. Na, ni, na, literally. In here it's also neer. Kannirgal. Kannir is, you saw at some point. Kannir.
Tears in the eyes.
Yes. Kannir. Kannirgal, Mulai kuvattil. Mulai kuvattil. Mulai literally means breasts. Mulai kuvattil. Tulichora chorvenai. Pennirmai. Eat. I'll probably read the. You read the translation. Then I'll go back to that. So, do you find similarities between two things that have been written across 800 years? From a woman's perspective, there is pining, there is separation. How does she, how does she express the idea of separation through tears in a similar way? It's a very stark, it's a very particular visual. And I'm just trying to get to the fact that it is there and people have been inspired by the same ideas over and over again. For example, here you know what it is talking about. The whole idea of tears gathering and spilling between my breasts like waterfalls. Here she says, the Talevi says, the place between my breasts has filled up with tears and has become a pond. So the whole thing of breasts is, two mountains, valleys, and waterfall coming down. It's a very strong visual. It's that pain she's talking about. And yeah, and the same kind of words that have been used. Perunkulam ஆயிற்று என் இடை முலை நிறைந்தே. முலைகள். Mulai is breast. Idai mulai நிறைந்தே, the space between it. So here also she says முலைகள் ஈடலுக்கும் ஜோர்வேனை mulai kuvattil. She says in it the difference is mulai kuvattil. So there is a continuity of tradition, and there are these common tropes that have been used. For example, the whole idea of the sun opening up to the sunflower opening up to the sun. You're so far, even though you're so far, I am very close to you. Without you, I don't even blossom. That kind of an idea. That's there in Nandamaya, Kshetriya, across. Even Jayadeva, I think at some point it used it. If I'm not wrong, I don't know. I'm thinking somewhere. Anyway, so there are tropes, common tropes like this which have been used. So that is one thing that I wanted to pull your attention to. Again, if you, this is also from Kurundugai. Yes. Yayum nyayum yara hero yendayum nandayum yemurai kelir. Kelir is again a word that we have seen in the past, which means skin. Yanum niyum evvali aridum shembula peyanir pola anbudai nenjam tangalantanave. Read the translation. So this also has been attributed a lot in popular cinema. You find this in songs and stuff. The whole verse itself is used in a song. I think it's Narumugai. It's used directly, which Jayashree has sung. Jayashree Unnikrishnan. They have just used this whole sentence. Yayum nyayum yaragiro. It's very famous, and also someone's book is also called Red Earth and Pouring Rain. It's just the imagery of the Sangam corpus in terms of, imagine this red earth and pouring rain like that, like in a flash, and then mixing without any, once they mix, you can't separate in that sense. You know what I'm saying? In terms of, that is how our love is what our hearts have mingled that way, is what he's trying to say. And also the emphasis on kin. I mean, the kinship and what it is. I mean, it's, so this composer, there's no name, but because of this famous poem, I mean, even in the Sangam times, he was really famous for this poem, even later. So this composer was not recorded a name. So he is also called Shembula Payanirar. Shembula Payanir is the word, which literally says, see, Shembula Payanir Pola. Shembula Payanir, Shen is red. Neer is water. Shembula Payanir is literally the meeting of the red earth and water, on rainwater. So Shembula Payanir is the whole thing that is red earth and pouring rain. The composer is known by his poem itself. We don't have any other reference to the name of the composer. He is called Shembula Payanirar. Like, pioneer. Like you have Ammayar with a respect, but Chembula pioneer. So that's the idea of this Sangam. This so, and it's so relevant even now. I remember at one of my friends' weddings, I officiated the wedding. I had read these as the vows to that extent. And I mean, it's personal also. It's very, but yeah. So this is again a thing that I wanted you to read from Sangam. Uh, yeah, I mean, if you have questions, I can read a few more, but generally, I don't know how much time we have. I think we are nearly short of time. So, so generally, I wanted to get you to read a little bit more of Sangam again. Nedanir, for example, how read another poem. Yeah. Now, how do we ascribe a thinite to this? Now, thinite, what do we have? We have a few things about water lilies. It's evening. It is, there's rain coming. The rain, there's water lilies, all trees, jackfruit trees, mountain slopes. There's a mixture of all this, but then surely there is, there's waiting that's happening, and it's evening time with all. I mean, there are a few more things when you speak of water lily, all of that. Then have the idea of water itself, and jackfruit, mountain slopes, all of that, put it to somewhere around Mullai. You can also say it's little Kurunji, but it's more Mullai. So I mean, I'm also giving you, for example, you have to start thinking about if there is a poem, and you can kind of think about what it is. uh, Now this is the kind of this is Sangam now. Now, if we have to move on to something like a Kamba Ramayanam, I'll just quickly say how they would use the same imagery. Now, the Sangam corpus generally, one major difference, point of departure from Sangam and then later, is that it strongly believes in the union, in the oneness of the inner and the outer landscape. If something is happening outside, that is what is happening inside. It will describe the whole thing, that this is what is happening inside. For example, in this poem, when she's saying, yeah, has become a pond where a black-legged white heron feeds. Now, this also could be taken as if this whole idea of heron is this man who has left her and he's feeding on something. You know what I'm saying? Like when because he's literally feeding on her pining away in some sense, and her tears. And so those associations, it's isomorphous, for example, to say it's just the same thing. Outside and inside is the same thing. Whatever you say, talk about outside is the inside. What a monkey will feel. I mean, monkeys are true common in the Sangam corpus. What they write, what they feel about their missed ones or whatever, or elephants, monkeys, all these deers. So you are feeling exactly, the Sakhi or the leader or the Talaivan, Talaivi, all of them are feeling exactly the same thing within and without, like that animal that you're describing about. The outside environment decides what you're inside. Now, as much as when you come to the Kamban time, when you come to the 9th, 10th centuries, much later, that is a little there is a departure from there. So, for example, I'll just read out the translation of this. Vadam Kol, Poon Mulai, again, oh God, there's so much Mulai breast talk today. Anyway, so basically, there's a place where Rama is bringing Sita to. He is bringing Sita to the Chitrakuta forest just after, and Kamban writes. And Kamban also is a very interesting person. When he writes Ramayana, he says it is something that has to come out. He's not saying I've been asked to write, it has to come out. It just comes out to me. And who better than someone like the Maryada Purushottam idea of this man who has lived his life so beautifully? And what is the need to create something new when there is already such great thing that is written? I want to let the Tamil people know that this thing exists of the Ramayana. So this there are three sets of verses. I'll probably read two of them. translation. So he says Rama is speaking to Sita. Now, what I wanted to observe is the similarity to the Sangam time, where you speak about the physicality of it, what the heron's doing, what the monkey is doing, which flower is there, is it raining, time. Like, because in one poem you have everything. There's evening, bats are there, they associate with something. Then there's leaves, water lilies, there's deep water, there's old trees, uh, jackfruit trees, mountain slope. There's so much physicality, and then probably just one line about her. There's a, oh friend, I know that they are painful the evenings when everything else is about the nature. But she is exactly feeling like that. Leave the old trees on which they reside, the backsides of bats, leaving them. Here again, the bats are something like the man who has left her. I mean, it's a little, you have to push your imagination a little bit too. I mean, so because she says, I know that they're painful the evenings when bats with curved wings and leaves of the, like, look like this backsides of water lilies that grow in deep water. So until here, the whole backside of water lilies, the description of the wings. That's all. We come back to bats now. Leave the old trees on which they reside during the day, letting them suffer in loneliness, to eat the fruits of wide-leaved jackfruit trees. Leave the old trees. Leave this woman who's familiar to wide-leaved jackfruit trees. Tasty, new things, interesting. He is distracted by these tasty jackfruit trees on the mountain slopes, which are probably better places. Mountain slopes also in some places we see is Kurunji, which are more for love. I'm just giving you that idea of how now this person becomes bad. The fellow has left is the bad, but here is the bad. But it's exactly how she's feeling, like the bad would. So that is, there's intrinsic unity in that. Now, when you come to Kamban, he would say, like, Rama is speaking about Chitrakuttavanam. He says, "O lady, who's like this youthful peacock and who wears pearl necklaces on her breast, the huge pythons which have kept in their huge belly, huge elephants, in Rut, have taken out their soft skins and hung over all bamboos, which keep on shaking from there itself, and they like the white cloth banners hung in the mansions of Ayodhya, surrounded by gardens. Please see them." Now, Kamban also describes a lot of these things, but as a very, he's distanced from all of this. You know what I'm saying? There is that idea. Then again, for example, I'll read you another one. The elephant with great matchless flow of rut, attacked by an angry lion, dies and falls down. The gems which come out of the blood flow of that elephant are shining like gems, in the sense that pearls. So there's this idea that pearls also come from elephant tusks, no? Like they different places from where it comes. One of those things is an elephant tusk also. So actually, it is more the pearls. In the where am I reading? Yes, attacked by the angry lion, dies and falls down. The elephant that dies and falls down. The pearls which come out of the blood flow of that elephant. I mean, the pearls that are reddened with the blood of elephant are shining like the gems fallen down, coated with kungumam and manjal. When you actually coat uh, pearls, I mean, they look like these kumkum and manjal things, because the pearls that are coming out of the elephant tusks when it dies, when a lion kills it, right? Yeah, looks like the pearls that are coated with kungumam from the cut necklaces of the ladies who have had these violent fights with their lovers. Please see them. Rama says. So there is sangamness in it, when you read it. What do you think? I don't know, it could be just me, but there's a continuity of thought. He's still ascribing to that idea of elephants, of pearls falling out of elephant, the color of it. But there's also a distance. He's not saying Sita is feeling like the elephant, or Rama is the feeling like elephant, or the lion. But it's a distanced view that this is happening. But also, in some readings, is also a precursor to what will happen to Rama and Ravana at a much later time, when the queen is having fights with her. So it could also be like, something like, it is my assumption. I'm not saying it's someone written, but the idea of probably Mandodari fighting with Ravana and Ravana being killed, and Mandodari's pearls of kumkum falling down after the fight with Ravana because eventually he dies. So he's probably that elephant. Those kind of things. It's also a precursor because the composer knows what happens. Kamban knows what is going to happen. So it could also be a precursor like that or something else. I mean, so there is a distance from it, and there is also a attachment to the Sangam. With that, I think we should end. I mean, there is that continuity of thing which I wanted to show. In Andal, you saw it in a different sense. And then Kamban, there is a different set of things because you have a lot of poems in the Sangam corpus about elephants and lions, mad elephants, how they rut and all of that. So that, yeah, more or less. Ta-da. Yes. Oof. And Mugate Kati is a famous song by Papa Vinasha Mudaliyar on this brilliant temple of Thiru Arur becomes Thiruvarur. Arurar is what he's called. And generally, his legs are not seen at all. His body is never seen. It's always covered with flowers all through, from the head to toe, except for the face, which is what he's so upset about. Papa Vinasha Mudaliyar, I'll just give you a gist of it. He says, Mugatte Katiye Deham. Deham is again a borrowed word. Deha Mugumayum Kattamal. Deha Mugumayum, you're not showing me the whole body. Mugumayum Kattamal. Moodu Mandiram Yedaya. What is the secrecy around this whole thing? Why can't I see all of you? What is the secret thing that you've been going, that has been going with, that you have been going around with? Jagattil Adigamana. In the world, there's a lot of people from the world which is like the grandest place in the world. Aruril Vasare, Sevita Menil, Unamundo, Unamundo, Tyageshare. Tyageshare, because Tirarur's lord is Tyageshan. Tyageshan means what? Tyagatil Ishan. He's the king of, he's the biggest person of giving up things, of Tyaga. He's the Ishan of Tyaga. Whereas generally you find Vishnu in another sense of, okay, we'll go to the later. Yeah. Now Tyageshan, we'll stick to Tira Aru Tyageshan. So he says, Tyageshan is this Lord. He says, in your strong, healthy body, could there be any defects? Why are you not showing it? Is that the secret? He's asking. It's also a kind of Nindastuti. It also came in a little before Papanyasamudaliyar with Muthu Tandavar. But yes, so he says that's also called Yeshal in Tamil, which is kind of making fun and all that. So Nindastuti. So Jagattil Arigamana. So basically he's saying in the Anupa Pallavi, like, oh, this Lord of Tirarur, which is like the most beautiful place in the world, the grandest of the world, in your strong, healthy body, could there be any defect in why you're not showing yourself to us? He moves on to the Charanam and says, in twilight, Sai Raksha is one of the most auspicious times of the puja, is when they say all the 33 crore devas, all the divine beings come to watch the Sai Raksha puja, which is the Sayankala puja, the sunset, the puja that happens around that time. The Arikala puja is the 6 times when it happens, the early morning, starting from early morning and then to the night. Of all of this, the most auspicious thing is supposed to be the Sai Raksha, which is the evening, twilight puja. So he says, suppose we want to come see you closely in the twilight, to just have a darshan of you, for a darshanam. You have this beautiful Javandipo. It's very beautifully said. Even your ears are covered with Javandipu. Javandipu is another flower that generally is uh, for Shiva worship. You can see it in the Tiraru temple as well. And this mysterious quality, Mayaki Mayavitanam. Mayavitanam is that quality of mystery. Mayavitanam Ulla and Ulla Mandahasam. Mandahasam is smile. A very, cunning smile that you're not showing yourself to us, but you're smiling, saying, oh, you can't see me. There's that idea of, you're closing yourself. Marait, you're hiding yourself from us. Even your hands carrying your man and maru, the deer and the axe, are themselves hidden. We can't even see them. And then he goes on and complains, why I can't see you. And then later he goes on to later, okay, fine. It's not letting me. But anyway, so that is a basics of Mugatte Kati, but generally it's an Nindaswati. I mean, the translations are there around, but yeah. Oof, that's my Mugatte Kati has 3 charanas, but anyway, I did the first one because that's it mostly. Ah, I underestimated the time that would be taken, but anyway, that's
See, there's so much to know that anytime we keep it's going to
yeah.
be
I
less.
don't know. I get it. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's something. Yeah. So that's basically it. So yeah. Any questions? Anything?
We need first to go through it before asking you questions. I've written down so much. ரொம்ப நிறைய எழுதிருக்கேன்.
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's just so much. I mean, people have done so much work and written so much work. Like Penguin says, even if you read all of that, it's enough. Great. Yeah. So
Bala, one question.
yes, please.
I may. So in condensed Hidaya also we have that Panikala Varijam Pole. So is that also something to do with this Nayal or something?
See, again, people would have used, but then can we say it with certainty? Probably not. But then, yes, I would say there is a continuity of thought. Yes, it could be that. Panikala Varijam also, for example, if you actually go and look for, it's a kind of a very palish lotus. If you actually see, at some point, I think I searched for winter lotus, for example, and it was a very bluish, pale, color very pale lotus, which is what had become of Sita's face. Inseparable. Something, yeah. It could be that because flowers also, we haven't invented any new flowers. People have used only old flowers. We haven't used flowers that came in from Mexico or US much later in the 15th, 16th, 17th century. So they're all native flowers. So people, composers also use native flowers because almost all the time, even in temples, you can't use these new flowers. Like you can't cook these new carrots and things like that and all these. So flowers, fruits, all 13th, 15th century, which is why for most of our things of Shardam and all, you can't use chili because chili wasn't there until the 13th, 14th century. Pepper was there. So they all have pepper. So similarly, all these flowers for puja that's used also are native flowers. So I'm sure they'll be part of that corpus only. I don't think they'll go beyond. This, I think. Yeah. Anything else?
A whole new world, there's. I felt I went back to Sangam people and came back.
For us Maharashtrian, this is entirely different. We start from the script itself. We are unaware of anything, everything that is there. So it's a very good experience for us.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I'm grateful to all my teachers, my gurus.
I have more sessions with you, Balakrishnan.
Yeah.
Sure. Soon. I mean, yeah, wherever, we'll just do it. But there's, I mean, it's also that I am also learning while doing all of this. There's a lot to learn even for me, for all of us. I think there's just like literally like Avai said, no, kattrada kai man alavu kallaladu kula halavu. Kai man alavu is this, this much. There's so much more. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I'm very grateful for all that for your presence, for your gracious time. So yeah, I mean, I had a lovely 3-day time. I mean, just setting up slides and getting.
We'll get to hear more from you. Maybe we'll keep like sessions on and off every time. Let's see. Yes. I'm not going to leave you that way.
Yes. I mean, yeah, it'll be good for me also to kind of, because unless, see, these things and all, I kind of know, I read, and to kind of put it all together also, I mean, this whole Andal and this thing I had read a few years ago, 2017 or 16, then I was like very fascinating. And now I kind of went back because I hadn't saved. Sometimes you read, you find something interesting, and then you're like, okay, done. You don't note it down because you need to have it in memory. So it's good. Yeah.
Yes. Anybody has any feedback, any suggestions, or any questions?
Feedback is brilliant, and suggestions we want more.
Perfect. Yes, we'll surely try and keep having such sessions now and then.
Thank you, Roshali. Thank you, Kalarpita. Thank you,
Just
everyone. And yeah,
just a small request. Can we just switch on our videos and we can have a selfie? Bala, if you can just
yes,
stop the share screen.
I will.
Yeah, just a sec.
So that I look bright.
Just a sec. Yes.
I didn't. I don't know. Is there
Are
one?
you there? Okay. Yeah, smile everyone. Yes, thank you.
And teeth like sets of corn.
Okay.
Super. Thank you, everyone, for your time and being there. And I hope I'll see you sometime somewhere soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, Vishal.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
And money. Like,
Yeah.
I'll make you the host.
Yes, please do.
Yes, super. Chalo, bye-bye. See you.
Bye.
So what, you come here for these sessions and do it together, is it? How do
No. She stays nearby, so she's always coming.
easier to? Okay, super.
Yeah, we had a class today in the morning also, no? So she's teaching with me too. So we have our class, when we talk, we discuss something, and we're always there together.
Because I see two Mugdas, so I'm like,
Yes, she's always also
Mugda, and
joined.
then there is a non-study. She's also, Delivery is mostly a Mugda Naika.
Oh,
Innocent, she doesn't know anything. And I was saying this Mugda. But anyway, chalo.
okay.
Bye.
Bye.